Alrighty, so the final game from match week number 17 is in the books, and I gotta say, I'm glad that I'm actually doing an individual review of this Sunday night soccer game, as this was the only game that happened on Sunday, because man, oh man, this game was wild. Especially the second half, where, yeah, at times defense was kind of optional at part of this game, but most importantly, oh my goodness, how many times did I had flashback of that 2020 Western Conference Final? And it also doesn't help the fact that Taylor Twellman keep saying that sort of game, and I think Jake Zivin also mentioned it a couple of times because the amount of time that Minnesota had a two-goal lead in this one just immediately gave me flashback of what happened in that 2020 Western Conference Final, and it also doesn't help the fact that Minnesota conceded a late goal in this one, and I'm just thinking myself, yep, it's gonna happen. And this team is gonna blow it again, and that even if this team get their first point ever in Seattle, and finally end this streak where they have lost 10 in a row against the Sounders, it just does not feel like a win. They held on. Minnesota held on to finally get their first win at Lumen Field, and it's also kind of poetic the fact that it happened literally a day after we saw the last team that went winless for this entire season. That is the LA Galaxy and their winless run at 16 games, and obviously we'll talk more about that tomorrow when I finish the review of match week number 17, looking at the last four games. Now, in the first half, the first shot of the game did see De La Vega shot hits his own teammate there, and really unsurprisingly, early on, Minnesota was playing their usual game. They were sitting deep. The Sounders were having most of the possession, and I think when you look at the tactical sense in terms of this game actually could be in favor of the Loons. Seattle is a team that likes to have possession. Minnesota is a team that doesn't like to have possession, and anytime when Minnesota does play against a team that doesn't uh uh doesn't really let them have possession, they usually front on these kind of games. So in some way, I was kind of having that optimism that maybe the streak can finally come to an end. But that being said, I've also seen the Sounders score some long range goals in the past between these meetings. So I'm thinking, yeah, those are gonna kind of be something that could happen, and that Minnesota need to take advantage of their chances, especially when it comes to the transitional moment. I didn't think the Loons had a lot of that, at least in the first half. Though I say that, but the post almost gave or Oloy Sherry almost gave the get the first goal, but the post of course denied him on the header there in the ninth minute. And really, besides that, not much really happened in this game, which is exactly what Minnesota wants. They want to frustrate the Sounders attack. I mean, this Sounders attack, they were kind of finding out in this first half, and really until the last 30 minutes of this game, where they just simply had no answer in terms of breaking down just a brick wall of defense that this Minnesota team was putting. But the possession was 64 to 36 in favor of the Sounders. Moswowski then heads it wide from close range before Rothrock puts it high on the volley. I was very surprised to not see Jesus Ferreira in this game instead of Moswowski. I mean, I get it. Yes, he did play in the middle of the week. I think he also played on the weekend matchup as well. And you want to rotate your team because this is the third game in 7 days for both of these teams. And in reality, this is probably like the sixth game in just the last 14 days for this Minnesota team. But still, was surprising that after Ferreira finally got off the shine in terms of the goal scoring, you maybe leave him in and provide a threat going forward because Moswowski was not that for the Sounders throughout this game. Ralph Rog would then puts it high on the volley. The Sounders started to ramp up some pressure, but again, they still haven't found any dangerous chances because this was a very well defended Minnesota team. Minnesota was really frustrating the Sounders team going forward. But at the same time, as I said, the Loons, they were not able to string any outlet ball to start the transition really ever since minute 15. They were kind of getting pinned deep, similar to what we saw throughout that entire game on Wednesday against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Though in the 33rd minute, Mark Hannig would puts one into the supporter section, and then there was a scramble in the Minnesota box, which the Loons just about cleared that one. There was a couple of times where the Sounders could have poked it in, couldn't quite do so. But there was no doubt that Seattle was now started creating some dangerous chances. But at the same time, they also are having problem in terms of the final third. There was a couple of times where they're crossing the ball aimlessly. I think that's kind of when you kind of start to sense that this Sounders attack is starting to become desperate. Like anytime when you see a team that just trying to cross the ball million time like that, you know things are gonna start to get a little desperate, and you know that the attack is starting getting frustrated because they just can't get anything going forward, and they're just heavily relying on these aimless crosses to maybe hope to generate something. Pereira would then cross it wide from close range in the 43rd minute before Gresso puts one right to Fry in the 45th minute. I thought Gresso had a really good game in this one, even though he only played 45 in this one. Part of that is because he was on a yellow card, and if there's one thing I know about Eric Ramsey this season, he is going to pull guys out of the game as soon as he feels like there could be a second yellow card that could happen, and I think that's kind of the reason why Gresso didn't play as much in this one and didn't go even into the second half in this game as he was subbed off at halftime. But I also thought that finally Minnesota was starting to connecting some passes in the opponent half. That was kind of a thing that got me really frustrated in the Vancouver game because yes, they were kind of parking the bus against Vancouver, but it also doesn't help the fact that the reason why they were forced to park the bus was because they just couldn't connect any passes in the opponent half, and now they were looking for the opening goal. Oluwaseyi then hits it right to Fry as the flag went up in the 45th minute. But we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. It was a bit of an uneventful first half, and then the second half happened. So in the second half, Muswaski would heads it over from close before Oluwaseyi tried to go on his bike there, but he missed wide there. So a kind of ambitious effort there from Tani almost worked out there. But just 2 minutes later, he would score as he scored from Lud and Longwane to give Minnesota a 1-0 lead, and that was a filth to the highest order from Robin Lud. I mean, the fact that he just completely done Nuhu with that Cruyff turn, that is just absolutely filthy, and one that yeah, Nuhu doesn't usually get beat that easily from a nice move from an attacking player, and that was one of the rare times that does happen. But nevertheless, Minnesota were up 1-0, and then just a couple of minutes later, they get a penalty as Lonwane was brought down by Bell in the box. So here comes Robin Lud, a chance to give Minnesota a 2-0 lead, and he did exactly that. And this is when I started to have a little fear in my mind because yeah, last time when the Loons got a 2-0 lead at Lumen Field, yeah, let's say no more. And before I even finished writing that down, in the 55th minute on the other end, Seattle would get one back as Cozy Renzi would score from De La Vega to make it 2-1 in this one, and this was a classic example of what happened when the team just score, and that they always say that you're always the most vulnerable when you just score, and Minnesota, that back line just completely switched off. They're very uncharacteristic there, and just like that, it's 2-1 in favor of the Loons, and I'm just thinking, yeah, it's gonna happen, isn't it? It is just as I was thinking about what happened in that Western Conference Final in 2020, and it looks like the meltdown is gonna start, right? Well, the referee was then told that he sucked because of a certain foul that didn't go the Sounders' way. But then in the 58th minute, Minnesota restored their 2 goal lead as Taniolo Ashai would score to make it 3-1 in this one. And, for Stephen Fry, as good as he's been this season, this is one that he wants to have back. I mean, he just gave up a juicy rebound there. He made a great save there on Pereira, but he just pushed it right into the path of Ashai, who took took that chance because he's been red hot this season. So yeah, that made it 3-1 in favor of Minnesota. Once again, I'm having flashback of the Western Conference Final. Anytime when Minnesota has a 2 goal lead against Seattle, I'm always gonna have that flashback of that horror night that I remember back in 2020 in that Western Conference Final. But I also wrote MLS after 3 p.m. is definitely in full effect because yeah, after a defensive clinic in the first half, it's just been a complete 180 of what we see in the second half. Somebody must have pulled out the Uno cards in the second half because in a span of 8 minutes, we have saw 4 goals that has happened in this one. Manungu then had a shot that was clear off the line in the 66th minute. Manungu was a huge factor in this game, and I thought he really unlocked the tough defense that Minnesota was putting, and that the Loons were having a tough time trying to contain him throughout this game. But there was no doubt the Sounders were pushing back to try to get one back, and the Loons needed to kill the pace and also take the pressure off because the pace of this game was going very fast. I didn't like the fact that the pace was going very fast, especially with the way that Minnesota likes to defend. I want the pace to slow down and at least for them to have some possession to really just kind of kill the momentum the Sounders might get. Now, in the 70th minute, I thought Markkanen got away with a second yellow card. So a couple of minutes ago, he of course got a yellow card for a tactical foul, and then just 1 minute later, he made a tactical foul again, this time on Manungu, and I think he's very lucky that he didn't get a second yellow card. Though I say that, but the first yellow card, I mean, it's debatable. I guess the only reason why I say it's debatable is because when he fouled Rusnak, looked like Rusnak kind of went down a little bit too easily. But then that was also starting a transition, so I can see why the referee decided to give a yellow because it's stopping a transitional moment in there. And then here it's pretty much the same thing. And like I said, I think that even though I know the referee don't want to immediately show the second yellow card, maybe show a little bit leniency to Marcanic after he committed a foul there. The letter of the all is that when you commit a foul on a transitional moment, it's always going to be a yellow card, even if it's not if it happened just after the previous one. So yeah, I think Marcanic got really lucky. The fact that this was not a second yellow and the Loons were down to 10 men, and it's kind of interesting that literally after a minute after Marcanic got away with a second yellow, he was immediately yanked off in this one because, like I said, Eric Ramsey, he does not like guys to be sitting on a yellow card and especially vulnerable of getting that second yellow card of this game. Hawkins then hits it wide from close in the 70th minute before Yoboa curls it wide from close. Manungu then puts it wide from close in the 78th minute. It was all hands on deck up to this point. Minnesota was pretty much bunkering, hoping that they can keep Seattle from not scoring that crucial second goal to make this game again. And well, nope, unfortunately, it didn't happen because in the 83rd minute, Romero, he's been really solid this season for Minnesota, but this is one of the rare moment where this was a ball that was coming in. He completely hits this one to try to play behind for a corner, and it goes into the net. Dane Sinclair actually did get something out of this, but could not quite parry this one away. And just like that, the Sounders have hope. And I'm just thinking, oh boy, here we go again. It feels like it's kind of inevitable that they're going to blow this lead in this one. But there was no doubt that I also said that the Loons are getting torch on the right side of Seattle. Just kind of continue to feed the ball on that side, continue to feed the ball to Manungu, who has just been absolutely electric in this one. We also get 7 minutes of stoppage time because why not? It's been a crazy second half, though. As a Minnesota fan, I was kind of almost like on the edge of my seat. I mean, I was kind of glued to the TV up to this point, thinking on one hand I was thinking, man, I really hope that they can hold on, but on the other hand, I just kind of had that doubts the fact that yeah, it doesn't seem like they're gonna do so, but thankfully they did do so in this one. And I think another thing that is kind of note to say about Minnesota this season is that they are the only team I think in MLS right now to have not conceded a goal in the first 15 minute and also into stoppage time as well. So despite the fact that I know this team has had these kind of moments where they go for a meltdown. I mean, I remember early this season against Sporting KC that 3-0 thing meltdown that they had, and then the Galaxy game, which was actually right on the 90th minute, but they actually have not conceded a goal in stoppage time this season. So at least that I have that going with the way that I can assure that it's not gonna happen where Minnesota has pretty much spent the entire season without conceding a stoppage time goal in the second half, and it's kind of no wonder why they're doing very well this season because when you don't concede stoppage time goal, usually you're gonna end up on the winning side, and that's exactly what Minnesota did in this one for the first time after 11 try. Minnesota finally beat the Seattle Sounder at Lumen Field. It's also only the second win that Minnesota has had against the Seattle Sounders. The shots in this one, 13 shots per the 10 that the Sounders had, 2 shots on goal for the 6 that Minnesota has, 4 shots off target for the 5 that Seattle has, 3 shots that was blocked for the 2 that Minnesota has, and possession-wise, 63% possession compared to 37% possession that Minnesota has in this game. And for the Sounders, I don't think they play a bad game in this one. I mean, yes, the defense was kind of problematic in this game as well, but I guess that's what happened when you decided to put John Bell as the starting center back of this team, and they're pretty much very crippled when it comes to the injury crisis that they have at the back line. But I thought they actually played pretty well, at least on the attacking end, and that, like I said, late in this game, they really put a lot of pressure on this Minnesota team. I think if this game would have went another 10 or 15 minutes, Minnesota probably would have conceded that third goal, and this would have been free. But nevertheless, what a win this is for Minnesota right before we head into the international break, and especially with the way that we know that this team is gonna be under the cusp with the way that they're going to missing a lot of players due to international duty, even coming back in that game against San Diego at Allianz in just 2 weeks. This is massive for them to get all 3 points in a place that they've never got 3 points, and the fact that in just kind of like this murderous road that this Minnesota team has got, they've got 4 points so far in this murderous road. I mean, if you would tell me like if Minnesota can get 4 points playing two teams that one Vancouver is the best team so far this season, and then two you go to Seattle and get all 3 points to a team you never got a point, I would absolutely take that. And yeah, this is a team that, yes, well, at times it hasn't been pretty, and I would also say that this is another typical game where it just feels like Minnesota never makes it easy on me, and certainly for the fan base to get it over the line. But at the end of the day, this is a historic win for this Loons team to finally end this curse at Lumen Field, and that hopefully this means that it might also end the curse in terms of not winning a trophy so far, and maybe this year could be a little different. Maybe they can go on a run, especially when it comes to the trophy curse. I mean, I know they've only been in the league for not longer than less than a decade, but still, there's a chance where they finally can win a trophy this season, and this is where I also go back to the U.S. Open Cup. That is probably the best chance to do so, especially with the way that this team pretty much have home field advantage for the rest of the U.S. Open Cup run. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of this game between the Loons and the Sounders. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this review? As I said before, tomorrow I'll look at the last 4 games, including talking about the team that finally get their first win of the season. That is the LA Galaxy. But in just a bit, I'm also going to watch tonight's historic CONCACAF Champions Cup final between Vancouver and Cruz Azul. And this has also been a week where it feels like the narrative has kind of finally changed, and it looks like unexpected result has happened. So I'm thinking that if Minnesota can finally get their first win in 10 tries against the Sounders, and if the Galaxy finally get their first win in 17 games to end their winless run, maybe Vancouver will finally become that second MLS team to climb the CONCACAF Champions Cup mountain and conquer that CONCACAF Champions Cup mountain by the end of tonight. But we'll find out in just a bit when I do the review in about a couple of hours. And like I said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.